When it comes to choosing a build surface to print on, the idea of getting a double-sided surface sounds like a great idea, but in practice there's a few issues that you may come to realize after using it for a little while like I have. Now, this is not to call out any manufacturer that does this. It's not anyone's fault, it's just a reality that some of you may have to reconcile with if you use it for reasons like I do. So on one side we've got flat PEI, and on the other side we have got powder coated PEI. And this is what it looks like. So flat, powder coated. Now the powder coated side has little tiny bumps, fractions of a millimeter, and it'll give your prints a certain texture, while the flat side is just going to be nice and smooth. And there's a benefit to this. You know, it's less expensive to get them both combined into one. However, there is a glaring issue. Now, my issue with it might be a bit application specific. I print certain things in PETG, and due to the location of where these prints are being used, I cannot use any chemicals to debind it from the print surface or really do anything with the PETG. It has to just be plain PETG on here and remove it directly off the build surface. And when you do that, and those of you who've worked with PETG know it can be a bit of a love-hate relationship, PETG tends to weld itself to the surface of whatever it is you're printing on, including glass. People have pulled chunks of glass out of their build surface with printing PETG directly on it. That's why you wouldn't ever print it on the flat side of PEI. You would print it on the powder-coated side, which is much, much stronger. And I've had great success doing this. PETG on powder-coated PEI is phenomenal. Great adhesion, and usually, because you can bend spring steel, it's pretty easy to remove. So it has the properties I like, but the more you use the powder-coated side, the more you might find that little bits of these powder-coated bumps start to come off with it. And when we're talking about 3D printers, fractions of a millimeter matter to a great degree. So if you suddenly have, let's say, a spot in the middle where there's no longer these bumps and on the sides there are bumps, you get something more or less like this. Now, this is the bed mesh visualizer on Octoprints, and this will help illustrate my point. So all this green surface is good, shows my bed is in fact level, but amongst this green plane there is a blue spot. And looking on our legend, you could see that it's telling us the blue spot is a slight dip in the surface. Now, it's nothing super dramatic, but it is there, and there's a reason why it's there. And that's because on the powder-coated side of the bed surface I'm currently printing on, multiple prints were printed on there and then popped off. And over time, it started popping off some of these little bumps and ridges that were originally powder-coated to the surface. And that means it's no longer going to be the same level as everything around it. This spot will be slightly caved in or just flat. So when we flip it around, what will happen is there's all this area that's nice and flat, but then there's that spot that was low. And that means when we clamp it down and the magnetic force of our print bed is pulling on this surface, it's going to have this spot where it's not flat because, well, there's stuff missing from underneath, creating uneven support. This can be fixed very easily. Just get one surface that is flat PEI, and if you need powder-coated PEI, just buy a different one separate from your flat surface, because what happens here could ultimately end up affecting what happens here. That's just something I've had to learn the hard way, but it happens.